All right. Welcome everyone to December 2021's session of Spiritual Questions Answered. So, in case any one of you don't know me, my name is Kat, and I'm the co-founder of CordyKet, and we are into spiritual and subtle energy. So basically, Cordelia, with Cordy for short, Cat, together we are known as CordyKet. All right, and we've been doing this work since 2010. And tonight's topic is going to be pretty interesting, and I hope that I can do a demo for those of you who are listening to this session live. All right. So the topic of tonight is about how food or diet affects our energies, and I'm referring to subtle energies, right? Um, this is a very pertinent question, especially people who are on the energy path, who wants to be a healer, and you hear things about food, and maybe you should restrict your diet. And I was very curious about this too when I first started out long time ago. So I'm going to share with you what we found out, Cordelia and I, and what are the things we've encountered along the way. All right. So let me share with you my personal story. So I had this awakening, and I went on this energy path in 2009. All right, and I started to explore in energy. And before that, I was I'm come from engineering background. I'm into science and all that. So it's not easy to just believe in all this type of stuff if I can't if I can't understand it. So I did my own research, and one of the very interesting things that I encountered before I met Cordelia. I met Cordelia in 2000 and end of 2010, towards late 2010. So I started my journey in 2009. So I had like about a year on my own with my friends and everything. I bought books, I read them, and internet and stuff like that. Now, one very interesting book which I read was written by a Native American healer. All right, Native American, that means like in US, the Native Americans, some people call them Red Indians, it's an old term, all right? And he was a crystal healer. So when I first started out on my journey, I started out with crystals. And so I was reading about this crystal healer, and he mentioned some of the practices. So so the Native Americans are very interesting. They have a very strict training into this energy stuff, and they are trained to listen, for example, to spirits that may be in the nature, stones, and all that. And those who train to work with crystals and stones, they really get very good training on that. Now, coming back to our topic, there was one thing he mentioned which intrigued me, and he talked about how food, right, has energies, and how the energies in the food can affect people, and he shared his practice, right? He shared his practice on how to cleanse food, and I will be sharing with you what I learned from him, and how very basic technique, right, that beginners can do. Of course, if you want really something which is advanced level, we teach that in our modality, Infinity Healing. Right? We have our own modality of energy healing, whereby we also train healers and light workers and so forth. So he gave this example whereby he was sharing, this Native American healer, right? He shared how he has his practice of cleansing his food before he eats every time. All right. So he's always doing it, and he noticed in several instances, right, whereby he goes out and he eats other people, and other people have food poisoning or fell sick, after eating the same meals, like probably a buffet, or I don't know, common shared meal. And the thing is, the rest of the people who doesn't do food cleansing, they are affected, right, food poisoning, or they just feel ill after eating the food. but he himself didn't. All right, and he shared his practice, and I found it very intriguing. So I tried it on my own, and to my surprise, it worked. All right, it worked. And this is just one story. So there's one thing is food cleansing. Now the other story is so as I went on this journey, there was this big point that many people like to make, that if you are into energy, if you're into spirituality, you should turn vegan or vegetarian, right? So, so that was a very big question mark: vegan or vegetarian, and so I came from a meat eating background, right? Like most people, right? Like most people. And I'm Chinese. I'm ethnically Chinese. I hope you all can recognize that I'm ethnically Chinese. So my family eats a lot of pork, and I come from a food-loving family, right? Whereby my dad is willing to drive a long way to a different town, to a different city, right, just for food, right, just to eat, right. So my dad is a foodie, and so I was pretty much a foodie, and I was born in a city known as Ipoh. Those of you, if you know Ipoh in Malaysia, it's one of the towns or cities that's famous for its food, right, especially hawker food. Right, so I'm very particular about food, and I love eating, and I love to try different kinds of food. Okay, so on this journey is often mentioned, right? If you're into spirituality, like or religion, they always advise, you need to do some vegetarian at least, or if you can, you need to do it. If you're really into it, you should do it for life, right? And if vegetarian is not enough, you need to go, maybe you should even consider vegan. In case you don't know, there's a difference. Vegan means no animal products, right? That includes that means no dairy, right? No milk, no chocolates. Oh my God, no chocolates, right? For a lot of people, that's a no. No honey even, because it comes from bees, for example, right? So vegan is totally no animal products. Vegetarian, usually you're still okay to eat eggs, right? You're still okay to eat eggs, dairy, honey, and all that. So this question came out a lot, and I begin to meet different people on the journey, and healers, for example. So just to share with you all my journey, because um, I believe it's more real, right? To show the evolution that we've gone through all these years. Okay, so in 2009, I started meeting all these people and started meeting healers, and there are quite a number of healers out there who are not vegetarians or vegans, right? And some of them will proudly declare that who says you need to be vegetarian or vegan to be a healer, to be a good healer? They say, they'll declare that I'm pretty good myself, right? And I don't need to eat vegetarian or vegan. That is all bullshit, right? And I had quite a number of healers tell me that, including people whom I respect, whom I respected very much back in those days, because I learned from them, or I had my first encounters about crystals and energy with them, and they declared no need. I eat everything. No need. You just need to do meditation, or you just need to do your energy practices, whatever, and you don't need to care about food. And I was like, okay, so I'm hearing all these people, and eventually I met Cordelia. Right now, Cordelia was more interesting now, because Cordelia was one of those people who really sensitive, right? Really sensitive in terms of energies, and Cordelia is also a meat eater. Okay, let me just share with you. Cordelia comes from a family whereby they eat predominantly meat, so it's like Cordelia doesn't like vegetable at all. When I first met her, she doesn't eat vegetables at all. So I've been to the family home, and and uh, I think only Cordelia's mom liked to eat vegetable in the early days, right? So they don't like to eat vegetables at all. right? So Cordelia is a very heavy meat eater, and she's very sensitive to energies. And so I was also learning from Cordelia. And Cordelia is a very authentic person, right? She's a very authentic person. She's very honest. And she was like, you know, she also said she heard a lot about people having to eat vegetarian or vegan, but she also proudly declared initially that I can get away with it. She said this, I can get away with it. So I was kind of intrigued, and she said very simple, all she need to do was to cleanse the energy of the food that she eats, right? Then I was like, oh, so you actually do food cleansing? And at the time, I was doing my food cleansing because I've read, from this Native American healer, right? I was doing so. I know that that something is there, right? There seems to be something that indicates food can affect our energies. All right. So thus began my quest to try and understand more. Okay, to try and understand more. Now, so because I was learning from Cordelia, and I was one of her disciples, right? There were many, and there are other people who were way more sensitive than I am. I wasn't so sensitive to energies, and I still don't consider myself as being very sensitive to energies compared to many natural sensitives out there. All right. What I realized, what I noticed, right? It seems to be true, right? Because normally, for all these sensitives, the first thing that they will notice is if they're really onto the path of energy cleansing of themselves, right? That means the more you work on cleansing your own energies, right, you'll find that some of the food, the energies are too negative compared to your own body. All right, so I'm trying to explain to you all how food can affect our energies. So when we were first born, right? When we were first born as babies, right? Obviously, we are quite pure, right? We don't eat much. We were drinking our mother's milk and everything, and I shall assume that most people will eat meat. All right. Now, what most people don't realize is the meat that we eat. It is supposed to be like chicken drumstick, okay? Um, Chicken drumstick, all right, or whether you eat some steak, right? Some steak, yeah, that's supposed to be steak. Now, most people don't realize there are energies in the food that come from the animals, right? They come from the animals. So I hope I can draw a chicken. It is supposed to be a chicken, right? And then from the cow or from the pig, um, let me see. All right. It is supposed to be a pig. All right, whatever animals, right? Now, most people don't realize that animals carry energy, and if we're eating their meat, we are eating the energies that come from these animals. Now, most people seem to understand that as humans, we have our energy, and our energy is dictated by a lot of things. For example, okay, for example, it's going to be dictated by our energy. It's going to be dictated by our emotions. All right. Those of you who've been following me, I always mention, for example, right, that our energies will it's affected very much by our emotions, right, and our mental states. So our emotions, our mental states, and something which people don't realize is, of course, our food. Right. So I put a question mark here. But what I'm going to point out to you is when we take a look at the animals, right? Their energy, similarly for animals, Their energy is also affected by their emotions, yes, and their mental states. Yes, unless you want to argue that animals don't have emotions and they have no mind and are not capable of thinking. But I think in today's world, we can clearly see that animals have the capability of feeling emotions and can clearly think. All right. Now, what most people don't seem to realize is this: what are the kind of meat that we're eating nowadays? Yes, most of the meat that we are eating today come from farms, and they are not just farms, right? In many instances, they are factory farms, right? They are farms that are like factories whereby thousands, tens of thousands of animals are being bred in captivity and slaughtered for their meat. All right. So um, now I'm just going to talk a little bit about the circumstances behind in all these animal the conditions at all these factory farms, especially factory farms. All right, and imagine the emotional and mental states of the animals. Okay. Um, those of you, if you watch those vegan activists videos, you would know what I'm talking about. So let's very simple. Let's talk about chickens. All right, chickens. How are they bred? So they are kept in cages whereby it is very packed. All right. So to maximize profits, right? So you don't have much space for the bird for the animals to move, right? So that you don't have to spend so much money to buy a big factory or big farm, correct? And they're all kept in cages. Usually for chicken farming, right? What they do is they keep the chickens in a small cage and force it to lay eggs. They only want hens, right? They only want hens, female chickens, and the female chickens stay in the cage. They lay eggs, and then when it's time out, a certain type of them, then they can be slaughtered for their meat. Usually, now this is a separate thing altogether. It's a sensitive thing in the meat market thing. Usually, male chicks that are born don't get to live to adulthood. Most of them, it's like 99.9% of them don't get to live to adulthood. Maybe some they really try to use the male to inseminate the females, but actually nowadays it's not quite necessary. They do artificial insemination. All that is, they don't even need to inseminate. All right, so the males have no commercial value, and only the females have commercial value. So this is quite tough to. So the male chicks after they are born, right, they will be separated out. The males will be separated out, and they are just moved along the conveyor belt, and they move around the conveyor belt to the grinder alive. They get dropped in the grinder alive, get grind up, and you know that's they are made into meat and sausages and whatever have you. So that is for the male chicks. Then the female chicks get to grow up, but they live in tiny cages, right? And they lay eggs, and then at a certain age, right, they get slaughtered and for meat. Now, think about these chickens. It is known in the chicken farming industry that these birds, their mental and emotional states are no good because they're kept cooped in the cage for practically all their lives, right? And they will start to have like depression or whatever, and they will start pecking at the neighboring chicken, at their neighbors, right? And they will try to peck and hurt, and they'll try to fight, right? Because they're unhappy, right? There's nothing for them to do. They just sit in the cage all day and lay eggs, and there's nowhere to go. And they just eat, lay eggs, shit, urinate. So normally, because they peck at the other chicken, what they do is they snip off the beaks, the sharp end of the beak, right? They snip off the sharp end of the beak so that they can still eat, but they cannot cause hurt to another bird. And these chickens, they're all depressed. They're all unhappy. Just place yourself in their shoes, right? So their emotions are all very dark, right? So their emotions are all very dark. So their energies are bad. And what do you think ends up in the energy of the meat that you eat? Similar kind of energies: depression, anger, dissatisfaction with humans, with their life. If they know God, maybe they blame God, right? So they're unhappy, right? But the next thing is, what's interesting is they lay eggs, right? And we eat the eggs. So the eggs will carry some form of the energy. Not so much, because the eggs don't grow up and don't keep generating the amount of emotions, because some part of it comes from the chicken. But what is interesting is this, right? Let's consider what we know about genetics. In the study of psychiatry, psychologists in mental wellness, they know that depression, right, or the tendency to get depressed is passed on through genes and passed on generation after generation, right? And seemingly through genes. So this egg very likely carries the tendency, right, for any chick to be born, they have the tendency to be depressed, right? And of course, chickens, their lifespan is very short, right, compared to humans. So after so many years of factory farming, each subsequent generation, the next generation will be easier to become depressed, but they live in the same conditions, right? After a few years, this one is dead, and then it will be the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. With each generation, the depression gets worse because the genes gets passed on. It's easier and easier for them to get depressed. The next generation will be even more depressed. Right? Now let's talk about slaughter. Okay, so while they are alive, they are mentally depressed, kept caged. Definitely emotions are negative, their mental states are negative, so their energies are negative, and their meat will have negative energies. So let's consider the pig. All right. If you want to go and Google, you can find there are a lot of articles about how intelligent pigs are. Right? Pigs are like one of the most intelligent mammals, right? Four-legged mammals, right? And apparently they can pass some tests which are designed for young humans, right? They're very intelligent. So same thing, they are kept in cages. They are going to be depressed, right? They don't have beaks to cut them off, but they are, because they are very clever animals. Imagine this: if I mean, God forbid, if anyone kept us in prison, we would be depressed, right? Most of us, right? At least in prison, we get more space than what the chickens and animals have. We still have some freedom. We can go out to the prison compound to exercise and everything. You think these animals, they have the kind of leisure activities? No, right? In prison, we still have some of our liberties. We can still have visitors. These guys have visitors, have friends? No, right? It's much worse. But even for us, when we go to prison, we're already very unhappy. Now, consider the pig. The pig is really an intelligent animal. The more intelligent an animal or a being, the worse is the suffering. Yes? Do you understand what I mean? It's like, if you are very low intelligence, you are not so aware, then you probably don't compare so much and you have no awareness of what could otherwise be better. Then you won't suffer so much, you won't be so mentally and emotionally affected. But for us humans, when we go to prison, we are already very affected. And the more intelligent the animal is, right, like the pig, is very affected, very affected. Now, I want to talk about slaughter. So in factory farms, um, for some factory farms, or maybe some would say most factory farms, especially for the bigger animals like pigs. Pigs can grow really huge, right? Really huge, right? And they are not slaughtered in their pens, uh, where in their pens where they are kept, where they stay, right? They're not slaughtered there. They are sent to the slaughterhouse, the abattoir, right, to be slaughtered. And it is a very tough journey for the bigger animals. Like the chickens is pretty easy. They just handle them in cages, and then you take one and then you slit the neck, you throw it into a drum and let it bleed to death. I've seen this myself, right? You can see it in Malaysia with fresh market. You wake up early in the morning, you go to the fresh market, you can see a whole lorry with full of chickens, and then they just start slaughtering the chickens at 4 5 a.m. in the morning. They just take a chicken one by one, they just cut the neck and throw it into a big drum and let it flap and die there. All right, that's how they slaughter chickens. I've seen that myself. Now for the big animals like cows, pigs, what do? They force the animals to walk, right, to walk to the slaughterhouse. Now imagine this, and in the slaughterhouse they will be slaughtering the animals there. And imagine if we are humans, right? Kind of like the Nazi camp, right? We'll be lining up and walking towards the warehouse, the building in front, whereby we know we're going to get killed because we can hear our friends squealing and screaming. And we can smell people urinating and defecating, shitting in their pants as they walk there, and people are crying and moaning and not wanting to go in front. In the slaughterhouse, what they do is they use something to poke the animal. Some say apparently they use the electric things to poke. Right? They try to force the animals to move, but all the animals are walking to their death, and they are literally shitting in their pants, shitting and pissing in their pants, just that they don't have pants, right? So the moment of death, the moments before death, is full of fear, horror, and it's entirely traumatic to the animal. All right, whether it's the chicken, the pig, the cow, in this type of setting, the factory farms, right, especially the factory farms. So the emotions generated, wow, right, definitely very negative, all black, and so will the meat. And it's not just that. If you take a look at chemicals, we are talking about biochemicals, chemicals in the body. They will generate a lot of fight and flight and a lot of fear associated chemicals. They will all be in the meat, right? So whichever animal that is. So that's why it's not surprising, right? Not surprising why, if you were to eat animals today, right, that you find that the energy in it is not so good, right? I would say that in the old days it wasn't so bad, right? Because in the old days the factory farms weren't so much there, I can still remember as a kid, a lot of people reared chickens and they slaughtered the chickens. The chickens were happy, right? They were happy, just that they reach a certain age and then they need to be slaughtered for food. But at least they don't live their life in depression, right? So there's not so much negative energies in their meat. But in today's world, whereby it's mostly factory farms, or really, the bigger the farms, the more commercial their practices is kind of like that right now. So the energy coming from meat has become worse. All right. Now, if you're really on a spiritual path, what's going to happen is we do a lot of practices to purify ourselves, right? If on the religion side, they do a lot of prayers, a lot of chanting, a lot of meditation, right? Those of us into energy practices, for example, if you're with us, we have Unity Qigong energy practice to release negative energies, bring in positive energies. We also have light meditation, strengthen our inner light and release negative energies. So we will have accumulated a lot of negative energies from our food, right? And with our practices, we will liberate ourselves, right? By doing UQ for us, right? Unity Qigong and light meditation, you release a lot of negative energies. Anyone on this energy path, they will release, right? Or they will be taught ways to release it. It's quite normal, especially if you're a healer, right? So you, as a healer, you learn how to release negative energies from your client, from your patient, and also from yourself. So you're purifying your energy, right? And if you ever reach a state whereby your energy is pure enough, and if the food's level of negative energies is higher than your body, and okay, this is very important, if you're sensitive enough, you're sensitive to energy enough, right? And you eat something whose energies are more negative, you will feel the effects. You will feel the effects. You will feel that your energy level drops because you are at a certain energy level. You take something which is negative, you feel that your energy level drops. So this is my understanding after I get experience and I understand about all this, and I validate to do, for example, energy cleansing on meat and everything, right? Then I realize, hey, it is true. So it explains why is it that some healers, some people say they don't need to abstain from meat, while some or many people will swear that they have to, right? That you have to, and I will tell you, the answer is eventually you have to. It's like it's a matter of time. It's really like a matter of time. It depends on your sensitivity and it depends on your level of energy. So your level of energy, right? Level of energy. How high is it? So what happened with Cordelia was, so I met her and she said, no need to eat, no need to abstain from meat. I can eat meat, right? All I need to do is cleanse the food. And she was my energy teacher, energy and spiritual teacher, right? And wow, so I look at her and so she cleansed and everything. And I was with her for so many years. Now I got to see the transition whereby Cordelia eventually have to eat less and less meat, right? Actually, she wrote part of her experiences in her book, right? Cordelia wrote a book. It's called "Possessed from Darkness to Light." It tells the story how she was possessed, how she was black magic, right? And some of these experiences. Now, what was interesting is that the first meat, one of the first meat she had to drop was pork. And um, this seems to correspond with what I heard from other people. A lot of people say that one of the first meat they have to drop is usually pork or beef. Usually these are the first two. I think like the Westerners, they eat a lot of beef, right? For us here, we don't eat so much beef. So like ethnic Chinese, we eat a lot of pork. Now pork is very interesting because like I said, pigs are very intelligent, so their meat is actually quite dense. And it's another thing very interesting about pork is um, pork is one of the meat that you cannot eat raw. Are you aware of that? Pork is one of those meats that you cannot eat raw. You can eat beef raw, right? You can eat your rare steak, for example. You can eat fish raw. But normally there are two types of meat they recommend that you don't eat raw. One is pork and the other is chicken. You don't eat chicken raw because you can easily get salmonella, a type of bacterial poisoning, right? With pork, the problem is parasites. So apparently the pork meat is very dirty and it gets lots of parasites in the meat. So there seems to be some grounded and non-energy reasons to 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 say why a lot of people on the energy path, the first meat that they drop, or very likely for a lot of people, is pork, right? Mainly it's because for me is the pork, the pig, sorry, is more intelligent. So mentally and emotionally, it suffers more. So the energy is more dense. more negative, right? And of course, the other thing is probably due to it's maybe they say it's dirty, or it's just the nature of its flesh. It gets parasites very easily, right? It also used to be linked in Malaysia, at least in the old days. Pigs were fed with leftover food. In the old days, there's a practice whereby whatever people cannot finish eating, you can just dump it out on a container, you leave it outside your house, and the pig farmers, they will come and collect, right? It's like free food for their pigs. This practice has been banned and for many years already. I remember my mom and my family doing that when we were young. We would throw all this food waste outside, and then there will be people who collect it, and we know it's for the pigs. We even have a term for it. I think it's called G Sao or something like that in Cantonese. So maybe it's due to the practice, I don't know, but there are, you can read about it, articles on it about pork containing parasites, right? So yes. Now, one thing is we mentioned is in the one lifetime they live in the cages, they are already mentally depressed, right? So the next thing we got to consider is the slaughter. And the third thing, which I actually mentioned, was the generations after generations, the tendency for them to be depressed gets worse and worse because it is passed down in the genes. And these animals have a much shorter lifespan compared to humans. So after decades of factory farms, right, and all these offsprings of the animals, right, their meat is denser than the previous generations. So we're getting more and more dense energies with each generation of farmed meat. All right. So this literally can affect. This is how it can affect. So with Cordelia, basically she came to a stage whereby she had to drop meat one by one. All right. She dropped pork, then she dropped beef. For Cordelia, because she was so sensitive, it was crazy for her because when she eats the meat, sometimes she can see the animal when it was alive and when it was slaughtered, and it's kind of traumatic. So she stopped eating meat most of the time. So now this is largely how food, okay, can give us negative energies. The other way is usually from the cook or even from the waiter. Usually the cook. For example, if you have a cook who is very angry, who is very depressed, and putting emotions into the cooking, right? Emotions are energy, so that can go into the food also. And then you have the person who serves you. All right. In the book, in Cordelia's book, she mentioned a waiter who had very bad energy served her the food, and she forgot that one time to cleanse the food, and then she like, she had a very bad reaction to it. So the people who serve your food, and we hear stories of you don't make the waiter angry, right? They can spit in your food and curse your food, something like that. So you don't want to make the cook angry, the waiter angry, and that is all the more reason, right? To eat home cooked food. Usually, our whoever is cooking food for a family, they are doing it with a kind and loving heart, and very willingly cook for the family, for children, right? So these are the other ways. Okay, and of course, for us, we also consider people who do black magic and stuff like that. In fact, one of my clients just was it yesterday or the day before suspected she ate some food which caused her to feel really bad and terrible, right? And she thinks maybe there's some negative energies in the food. And I was advising her how to use Unity Qigong and light meditation to cleanse the effects of. All right. So these are usually the methods. Now, I'm going to share with you all how to cleanse the food that I've learned. It's a very basic thing, right, that you all can practice on your own before I go and address your questions. Okay. So what the Native American healer did was very simple. In general, what everybody can do is two things, right? First thing is pray for your food. I pray for cleansing for your food, right? Those of you who have your religious practice, even if you don't have a particular religion, if you have a particular religion, you have a certain prayer, a mantra, for example. So you can chant and pray and pray. You got to pray sincerely, and then use the make a request to your particular divine, right? A particular divine or God or deity for the food to be cleansed. All right. So that is a very basic way. The other is to pray and send light to your food. Right, to pray and send light. Usually they advise prayers because for most people, our energy, most people's energy is not pure enough. And if you send your own energy to your food, it's not good enough. Now, those of you who are following us, it's very simple. I would assume most of you are practicing unity qigong and light meditation. So if you do that, right, your energy will get better and better, purer and purer. You're cleansing yourself, right? And when you do this prayer and you try to send light to your food, it can work, right? Maybe not at the same level as someone who does it professionally, like Cordelia and I, or whereby who spend a lot of time doing unity qigong and light meditation, but it can be done. All right, so this is a very simple thing that you can do. Now, before we move further, I was telling you all before I started the recording that I can do a demo for you all. Right, those of you who are willing to demo, if you're willing to switch on your camera, does anyone want to try? What I can do is you get a glass of water. All right, a glass of water. Right, switch on your camera, you put it in front of your camera. I'm going to cleanse the glass of water for you. What I want you to do is take a sip of water. All right, take a sip of water from the glass in front of you. I need you to on the camera so that I can cleanse the energy. So drink from your glass or your bottle of water. All right, drink a sip, remember the taste, then you put it in front of your camera, and I'm going to cleanse the water from wherever I am, wherever you are. I think Xiaofang has gone to do it, right? Xiaofang is in China. All right, Kylie is there. Okay, so Kylie, thanks. Can you take a drink of your? Have you tasted the water yet? Right, just yeah. Those of you who are willing to try, others you can just go into gallery view and view them. So those who want to try, can you please take a sip? Take note of the taste. Take note of the taste and take note of the texture. You know, you can feel some. Just take note of how it feels in your mouth. You swirl it a little bit. You know, drink it a few times. Okay, Xiaofang, Kylie, please do the same. All right. Okay, Xiaofang, you've drank it. Okay. Kylie, you've drank it. And Jenny, okay, Jenny, please take a drink also. So I'm going to send to Xiaofang your cup of water. Xiaofang, I'm going to cleanse your water. So the way I'm doing is I'm putting good energies. I'm not putting bad energies. So, you know, so that you won't end up drinking something bad. The idea is see whether can you taste the difference, okay? So Xiaofang, your water is done. Please take a drink. Okay, so Kylie, I'm going to do your water. Okay, Kylie, you can test. So Jenny, I'm going to do your water now. Jenny, yes. All right, so Jenny, you can try and taste. Let me know whether you all can feel any difference. All right, because water is very bland. Do you mind sharing on video or you want to type on chat?
Me, I go first.
Okay.
Very interesting. So I'm actually having a water filter. usually the water filter will kind of like, one kind of smell. Okay, but okay lah, it used to it. But I think it's make a difference. I think after so-called that you have sensed the energy, I sense that no more smell, tastes nicer.
Tastes nicer. All right, thank you. All right. Xiaofang, you want to go next? Xiaofang, you want to share? Oh, Xiaofang in chat says, for me, feels softer. She says that her water feels softer. All right, good. Jenny, do you have any feedback? Do you want to share? Do you want to speak? Or you want to type? I can't hear you. You need to unmute yourself if you want to speak. Do you want to unmute yourself, Jenny?
Sorry. Okay. The water tastes softer and it tastes nicer compared to the first before the cleansing.
All right, thank you. All right, now I need to assure people that I didn't pay them, right? I didn't pay them to do a demo, but some of you, if you're watching this as a recording, I know some of you would think that this is fake. It doesn't matter, all right? But this is to show that actually energy can change, right? Even the taste of the water. I use water because water doesn't have much taste, right? And so it's actually not easy to do. Some people can sense it, some people cannot. Now, thank you for agreeing to do the demo. I'm going to go through your questions, all right? So, Eddie is saying, spirits related to lives. During slaughtering of animal, it doesn't want to die. The animal may release toxin in its blood, and the person who eat the animal may get sick and affect his or her vital energy. Yeah, it's something like that, right? So there is a biochemicals that are produced, and it's not positive kind of thing, all right? Does the bio growth injection chicken aggravate the energy? Now, let's not just talk about energy. Now, the chickens grow up fast, and now this is not supported by science, but there are clearly a lot of claims out there that make, for example, they claim that some people, some guys are getting breasts because of eating too much chickens that are injected with hormones. I don't know whether it's true. Now, the injections normally affect the physicality of the animals, right? They don't make such a big difference in terms of energy. If you ask me, one of the things that I don't recommend, for example, is microwave. All right. So microwave oven is another thing I need to mention. So microwave will send energies to your food, and these energies are not good for your food. And so at my home, we don't use microwave oven. I just have a normal heater kind of oven, right? We never use microwave because if we use microwave, we have to use a lot of energy to cleanse the food. I mean, why want to waste energy? Yes, I can do it, but I don't want to have to, yeah, so it's no good. So to answer Edwin's question, I would say the emotions, the mental states, these are the number one stuff, okay, that we find effects and all this. So if we want to eat animals, like I can recommend that you don't eat animals from factory farms. If you want to eat chickens, please go and eat free range chicken. You get what I mean? If you want to eat pork in Malaysia, you can eat wild boar, right? In Malaysia, we get quite a lot of that. Curry wild boar, right? And for example, if you want to eat fish, or fish have less problems because they got more space, even though if they're factory farm. But I would recommend, if you can, you eat those that are caught from the wild, from an energy perspective, right? But of course, if you're eating from the wild, you also cause the population of the wild animals to go down. So it's not an easy answer, but I'm just giving from energy perspective. You don't want to eat animals that come from factory farms, all right? And if we are in Southeast Asia, when we go to Thailand and Indonesia, it's very nice to eat a chicken there. Although I stopped eating chicken, all right? Because the chickens, they're all practically free range. You see every household, they have chickens running all over the ground, especially in the countryside. All right. So those chickens are really good. They taste better, and they don't have all this so much negative energies. So that answers Kylie's question about fish. Edwin is saying human has about 4 lion teeth and the rest are horse teeth. So like canines and yeah. So diet proportion should follow ratio accordingly if one to choose to eat meat as well. Does high pesticide vegetable affect the energy? Edwin is referring to like canines, right? The sharp teeth and the molars, for example. Why don't you take a look at gorillas? Gorillas have canines. You see gorillas screaming, ah, big canine. Do they eat meat? They don't. They don't. Not necessarily the canines are for eating meat, but definitely if you want to eat meat, the canines are your so-called lion teeth is good for meat eating, right? Gorillas, the monkeys have canines too, right? All the apes they have canines, 4, right? Much bigger than our humans. So we don't just look at the teeth. We also look at they also the anthropologists, those people who study all this. They also look at the intestine length and so on and so forth. I'm not here to argue about veganism, vegetarian, or to implore or to recommend that people go vegetarian or vegan. I'm explaining from our energy perspective, right, what is happening and why Cordelia and I have cut most meat from our diet. All right, so we practically cut it from our diet. We do eat fish, especially because we have a young child. We want him to have a more balanced meal, right? So we eat fish and eggs. Usually, fish is from the sea, right? We don't eat any other meat at this time. But when we eat fish, we eat very little. All right. Normally once a week we eat 3 times, three times fish, and each time the fish that we eat is maybe 1 spoonful. And we cannot eat too much because the energies will become dense, right? Yeah, even if the fish comes from the sea, because the animals do have more denser energies compared to plants. Plants live a life that is, plants, they are really they don't do any harm. It's totally different level of purity. So plants is much better. But this is for Cordelia and I, and we are sharing with you all. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm sharing with you all because we get asked this question quite a lot, and I've been trying to find the answer myself and sharing with you all. So does high pesticide vegetable affect the energy? Yeah, actually pesticides have bad energy, but it's not the bad energy that kills you, it's the poison that kills you, right? Okay. So again, Edwin, when started energy badly affected, is it linked to high cancer cases nowadays due to poor selection of quality and type of food? Yes, actually, it can lead to cancer. So that's another topic altogether. Cancer can come from negative energies. That is part of the factors, right? So if you talk to an energy and any energy healers, we can provide complementary therapy and healing to people who are cancer patients to support, for example, whatever cancer treatments they are going through. Because the Western medicine, for example, cancer treatments, they don't look into energy causes, right? And sometimes those treatments also worsen the patient's energy. So we can support in that manner. All right. So Abby is asking, can we use single copper wire device to detect positive, negative energies food? I'm not sure what simple copper wire device you're referring to, but for example, I use dowsing rods, right, to detect energy, and it's my dowsing rods are made primarily of copper and brass. Brass is a copper alloy. But to train to be able to use it properly is not easy. But can it be done? Yes, it can be done. All right. So it's also something that we have on our Infinity Healing Infinity program, whereby we train people to read energy and do energy healing. All right. So how to cleanse the food before or after cook, both also can. Yes, so I've recommended to you all. You all can use prayers and imagine sending light. Now, for a lot of people, sending light is not very effective because their level of light is weak. So if you want your level of light to be strong, it's very easy, right? You do more unity qigong and you do more light meditation, because the light meditation strengthens your light directly. Then when you send light, it's easier. And when you pray and all this, these are practices of light that you get this invisible light with you. So that's why I recommend prayer. Jenny is asking any mantra. So any mantra, Jenny, if you are Buddhist, for example, you can do the Amitabha mantra, Namo Amitabha or Namo Amitofo, for example. So if you're Hindus, they can do Shiva mantra, for example, or Lord Ganesh mantra. So a Christian, you can do your Lord's Prayer, right? Muslim, they have their own prayers, for example. All right. Eli is commenting, should give something more challenging to cat. Coke becomes flat. Yeah, you cleanse the coke, the taste becomes flat. Eileen can do her own cleansing, so she knows. What about air fryer? So Kali is asking, what about air fryer? Air fryer is fine. You just fry, right? It's not much different from the normal frying, just that you use less oil and you use electricity instead of gas, for example. All right. So Stefan is asking why microwaves are not good. Oh, so microwaves is a form of energy and it's electromagnetic energy. All right, it's electromagnetic energy, and most of our food don't have it. And you're adding energy to the food. And look, you talk about evolution. Men have not eaten microwave food all the life until these past 70 years, right? 50 to 70 years since the microwave oven has been invented. Maybe just 50 years, or I don't know, less than that. Maybe 30 years. I don't know how long ago was microwave oven invented. So our bodies are not used to eating food that has been energized with electromagnetic energy, microwaves, right? Now, the way microwave works is it excites the water molecules, and these water molecules are already energized, and these water molecules will get absorbed in our body, and our body is at least 70% water. Do you want microwaved water particles to be part of your body? It could happen that way. I have no idea. There's not enough science and data and understanding about this stuff. But based on energy and what you can sense, Xiaofang, you yourself is quite energy sensitive. You can sense it. And those of you who have learned Infinity, we've got many people who learn Infinity and they do advanced levels of food cleansing, and they all are very happy because they can sense the energy of their food is much better after they do a proper energy cleansing on their food. All right. The simple methods I taught you all will work. It will work better if you are a regular practitioner of UQ and light meditation. All right. Stefan asking, is food like rice and beans kept in the fridge for 3-4 days, are they still good to eat? Less life force? Now everything depends. Okay, because energy. Now, when things rot, when things spoil, the energy also becomes negative. All right, it also becomes negative. So don't talk about energy, because when food spoil, right, it gets poisonous, it gets toxic, and then it gives us food poisoning. That in itself, right, is already bad enough. Don't talk about subtle energies. So talk about more earthly things, right? It's spoiled food, right? It's spoiled food or food that is spoiling. Of course, it's not good for health, right? Of course, there are some things which are natural fermentation. That's different. Like for some things, if you are naturally fermented, right, like fermented tofu, even fermented rice, you can use fermented rice wine, and it's still okay. Excuse me. Excuse me. So Xiaofan is asking, is it also recommended to not eat onion garlic? To not eat onion garlic is a totally different reason. All right, it's not to do with energy. It's more to do with attachment. All right. So for the Hindu side, they don't want to eat food that are for example, rajasic, which is too stimulating. If I'm not wrong, onion and garlic are considered rajasic. If I'm not wrong, I'm not into Ayurveda. So they want food that are of certain quality that is more neutral, that doesn't excite or that doesn't dampen your energy, right? I think I think onion is rajasic, and they have different categories. So one will excite, one will dampen your energy. So you don't want either. You want something that is neutral. For the Buddhists, they don't want attachment. So you don't want things which make your food taste exciting, like garlic, onions, chives, So chili, right? Yeah. So that has to do with attachment, nothing to do with energy. Chili, yes. Now, those of you who are on purifying the body, you purify the body, you purify the energy. You find that your body reverses to a younger state. I share with people how we did a detox retreat, right? A detox retreat whereby we did Shankara Prakshalana, which is a yoga practice to keep on drinking water and then keep on pooping, all right? Defecating, keep on shitting. Go toilet and keep on shit until there's literally no more shit in your body, all right? And then we also did a cleansing diet, vegan diet. And after that, the taste buds in the body revert to a younger age, and you can't eat spicy anymore. It feels very, very spicy. You can't eat chili anymore. Very, very spicy. So it's like a child. They can't eat spicy because it's very spicy to them. For us, our taste buds and everything has blocked, right? So we can eat spicy. It's something that is trained. But if we reverse our body to a younger age, to when it's purer, then we can't eat it anymore. It's not so good. And those of you who are on the energy journey, right? Some of you here, I believe, have experienced it before. That suddenly, if you raise your energy level to purer and purer, you find that you can eat less. You can't eat so much spice. Same for me. I can't eat as spicy as I used to. I still eat a little bit of spice. Life is no fun if so I still have a little bit of attachment to food. I'm not attached to food per se, but yeah, it's just food, and I eat it. I still eat some spice, but not too spicy. Too spicy, then it will give me stomach trouble, no matter how much I cleanse it. What about vegan meats that are made from peanuts or beans? It's fine, right? Those are mock meat. As long as they're made from good sources, it's perfectly fine. Edwin say miss the water boiled by charcoal. Tastes very good. Yeah, so it has a different taste, different energy, right? And of course, different material, carbonized. Sapphire asking food from cans. So food from cans got different type of stuff. Again, it's the way it's processed, whether, I would say, for example, the cook, right? Usually, of course, in a factory, it's done by machine, so not so bad. Edwin is saying, under very powerful electron microscope, happy and unhappy water can be seen. Yes, and they talk about water crystals. There is a very famous series of experiments by Dr. Emoto, right? And I think some German university, they also published something similar to Dr. Emoto's findings. Edwin is saying garlic and ginger great to kill pandemic virus. Yeah, I mean garlic has been shown to be able to have some antibacterial qualities. Ginger is also anti-inflammation, so it's very good. All right. Someone is asking, but canned food is less good than fresh food? Oh yeah, obviously, fresh food you have a life force, right? The life force and chi is still there, so you're taking in some additional energy. But you're talking about food substance, protein, vitamins. Vitamins will be much less because no longer fresh, for example. All right. So any last minute questions before we call it a night? What about protein powders? Yeah, I mean, protein powders are fine. They're protein. Now, again, everything depends on the source, right? You cannot just ask me a question. I mean, you ask me a question about protein powder, but I don't know which protein powder, which brand. In general, they are fine. It depends on their source, right? If you ask me, I would highly recommend to get everything from fresh food and avoid farm animal products. All right, that is my recommendation. Okay. Any last questions? All right, if there are no more questions, I thank everyone for joining me. If you feel you've gained some value, please make a donation. Right, how to make a donation will be in the groups. In Facebook is under announcement session. In Telegram is under the pin messages. In WeChat and WhatsApp, I'll be sending you all how to make a donation. If you can't afford it, that is fine too. And just to share with you all, tomorrow we'll still have Infinity Wellness Festival Day 2. All right, a full day of events tomorrow. It's all free and donation basis. So thank you for attending my session, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you and goodbye.